Welcome to the Business and Interiors podcast, the place where the world of interior design meets the essence of business success. I'm your host, David Del Greco, alongside my co-host, Cinzia Moretti of the award-winning Moretti Interior Design Studio. Our mission is to help interior designers run, streamline, and grow their business with confidence. In this podcast, we dive into the professional journeys and personal stories of some of the most inspiring interior designers and creative entrepreneurs. Each episode offers a glimpse into the strategies and experiences that have helped shape their business in this ever-evolving industry. So tune in, get inspired, and join us as we uncover the stories behind the design. Hello everyone, we're pleased to have Laura Hammett with us today. Laura Hammett is a multi-award-winning London-based interior architecture and design studio, specializing in luxury residential projects worldwide. Founded in 2008, the studio is known for its bespoke approach and classic contemporary aesthetic. In 2023, he launched Laura Hammett Living, a luxury homeware collection translating the studio's design language into refined hand-designed pieces. Laura, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I know that you have an unconventional beginning. Tell us your story. How did it all begin and how did the studio come to life?
Well, I think it is unconventional because I speak to other studios and I feel like the typical route is, coming from a studio in the industry and then kind of branching off and having a launch date and maybe partnering with somebody. That seems to be the typical kind of journey. But for me, it was really born out of, I think, necessity rather than ambition, if I'm honest.
Okay.
I studied interior architecture at Brighton, so I was down that path career-wise, taking it very seriously. I'd worked at 2 small studios in London at the very beginning of my career, really hands-on jobs where I really learnt an enormous amount, which I think I wouldn't have if I'd worked for a bigger studio. So I really, really value that. Mm-hmm. But then life took a dramatic turn, as it often does, in my personal life. And my stepmother died very, very suddenly, leaving my 16-year-old half-sister. And it all happened kind of overnight. And without giving too much information about my kind of family dynamic, I was the only person, age 25, who was able to kind of move into that home and play mum. So she was obviously not in a good place. It was a really, really difficult time. And I ended up having to kind of quit my job and be a bit of a stay-at-home mum for a little while, just trying to keep her, in one piece. And so it was a difficult time, and it was one of those opportunities in a way to do something, build something from a dark situation. So, I wasn't able to kind of commit to a full job. As we all know, this industry is extremely testing. It takes a lot out of you. You really have to commit, particularly, I think, in those early years where you're really proving yourself. And that's kind of where I was. So I thought long and hard about what I was good at, where my skills were. And it was a whole range of random things like sewing, and a bit of kind of some ability with, computers in the sense of, building a website, that kind of thing. So I really just thought, okay, what can I do from home that allows me to be around for kind of school pickups, school meetings, that kind of thing. And I started making cushions and selling them initially on eBay. I didn't go to Chelsea Harbour. I didn't know how to kind of break into that world. I felt so intimidated by it. So I ended up going to kind of some little boutique fabric houses and doing something really, really quite makeshift. It was nothing professional. Selling them on eBay. And then I ended up building a homeware store. So I built a website using Flash, which feels like something. God, another lifetime now. But so learnt from one of the, those dummies guide to XYZ. And I had a go, built, it was a Flash website, and then it had a kind of e-commerce wing to it. I can't even remember how it worked now, but so I was selling my cushions, and then I was also I went to lots of graduate shows and met some really great kind of makers, ceramics people, all British made, some beautiful homeware products, which actually is an interesting turn of events now that I'm doing that all over again, a bit of a full circle moment. But So I really loved doing it, but it really was out of necessity. It wasn't something that I was like, right, this is my goal. I'm going to set out and start a business. So I'd essentially stepped away from interior design temporarily, was working more on the retail product side. And then the next turn of events was a friend of mine who lived locally to me was doing she had a gallery, a kind of online gallery where she was representing emerging artists, and she was local down the road. And we found this empty shop premises on the little kind of slightly quiet high street that we lived near. And we thought, look, it's been there for a year, it's been empty. Let's find the landlord and see if they would do a kind of rent-free trial period if we just tarted it up. So we approached the landlord, really overly confident 25-year-olds, just kind of saying, we're going to, transform the high street. We're going to raise the property price, all that stuff that you feel so sure of when you're young. But anyway, they said, yeah, fine, go for it. You have to, do all the work. It's in a bad state. Do all the work yourself. We had her brother do the electrics, which were definitely not certified. God knows what the health and safety situation was there. But we kind of, made a cute little pop-up shop. She had art on the walls. I had some of my products. We built all the kind of points of display and the window display. It was a really, really fun time. And it gave me a little bit of escapism from some of the challenges I was dealing with at home. So, although it was hard and it was hard to manage both things, I think I needed something for myself at that point, because, life was a little tough. So I was able to really kind of go to work and feel quite passionate about it. So I think the ambition side of things kicked in over time. It wasn't something, like I said, there was definitely no business plan. That was not. And I think it was a real surprise to people who knew me that I was going off and doing anything on my own. I had been very into my career. I was really enjoying my career and I did take it seriously, but I don't think I was excelling in it. So I think it kind of had a bit of a snowball effect. So the shop was fun, but it wasn't a huge moneymaker. But it did allow me to get to know some local people who would come in and buy something and then get chatting. And then we'd talk about bathroom design or upholstery or curtains. So that part of London in Brook Green, my sister still lives in that same house that we lived in together.
Oh, nice.
And when I see her, there's most of those little residential roads, I've done some curtains or I've done, it's quite funny. It's quite a kind of moment in time for me. But I got more into interiors over time. And then, unfortunately, the recession hit very hard and it hit my friend's business very, very hard. So she had to close down. And then a local garden designer joined in and we just kind of made it more of an office space. So up until that point, it was really just me. I think I had some interns from KLC and places who would come temporarily and just help out a bit. But it was really just a small scale business. And then I'd met Aaron while the shop was still going. I think that first Christmas that we spent together, he mostly got presents from stock that wasn't selling. He got a few kind of whiskey tumblers, I think. But quite quickly after that, things started to kind of change and become a bit more interiors focused. And I closed down the online shop. And just was doing nice small residential projects, mostly around the West London area, kind of Chiswick, Hammersmith, Brook Green. And it was going really nicely. There was a real limit to how far I could take it when it was just me. That's the kind of, I think that everyone has that obstacle of knowing how to kind of do that jump to expand. And I think that's where Aaron came in and kind of helped us just get to that next stage.
I mean, you're saying that obviously that you didn't have any business plan, but I can feel that the entrepreneurial flair was there, even at the, even when you were so young as well. So
I think it must have been. I mean, I definitely wasn't aware of it at the time. It's not how I would have described myself, and I still don't like that term. I think it's really overused, maybe, but. I think I must have had some kind of innate vision for what I wanted to do, or at least I think I describe it more as like a gut feeling. I definitely, that's what guides me. It's just a kind of an instinct of knowing what feels like the right step for me personally, the right step when I'm kind of I think I find it quite easy to kind of step out of the day-to-day and look at the kind of the big picture of the situation or the problem. I mean, so much of business running and the industry as a whole is problem solving day after day after day,
sure.
varying different degrees and scales. So I think I find that side of things quite natural. So I guess maybe that is entrepreneurial, I guess.
Yeah, but thanks for sharing, because that's very interesting. There's a lot of people out there that might be taking inspired by your story. So yeah.
Well, I think there are lots of different ways into the industry.
Yeah,
and I think
absolutely.
that's a good thing and a bad thing. I think there's a very kind of low barrier to entry in the industry, and I think that's great in terms of the opportunity that brings for anyone and everyone to give it a go. I think it can make things quite problematic in the industry where it's not as regulated as it is, let's say, in the States.
Yeah.
You don't need certain qualifications to start at a studio. So I think there's good and bad to take from that, but I think the opportunity is definitely there, and you don't have to have, I know so many people who haven't even studied and they've got fantastic companies. So I think you've just got to kind of give it a go, but know what you're doing.
Yeah.
For sure.
And what are the milestones that actually make you put in the luxury market?
Well, for us, we had a real turning point, and it was a real lucky break, I guess. When I had that office in Brook Green, I literally just had a walk-in, and it was somebody who was a property developer who had heard about some local work I was doing, and he had for my size back then, a big project. It was a house in Chiswick, and I don't think at that point I'd done a full project. I'd done parts of projects. And he just said, look, he took a gamble on me, essentially. And that was a huge turning point to do a decent sized project. I did a couple with him. Aaron joined during that phase as well. And then the main turning point into the luxury market was him moving up in terms of his properties. So he went from kind of Chiswick predominantly into Belgravia. I think that was his next move. And then we did some in Mayfair with him. And they were really a huge step up. And he definitely took a risk on us at that point, because we'd never done anything to prove that we were capable of that. And I have to be honest and say that first project we did with him was a real learning curve for us, because I think we threw too much at it. Because he said, look, whatever you think I want more. That was his exact phrase. And we were like, wow, because we'd done quite kind of pared back, family homes. It was all quite simple. And suddenly we were going and, finding all these incredible specialist finishes, and just budgets were it was a development. So there were still budgets, but budgets were definitely much more exciting. But I think I remember that project really well. And I still love it, but it was a Muse house. Every piece of joinery was completely different. Every room had a different. We just did too much, and actually that was a real learning point for us, because I think we really looked back at it and thought it didn't feel right, and that what we love is more of like a thread and a bit more of a considered approach when it comes to design, and making sure that there's a real kind of design principles and rationale as you move through the home. But it was a fun, creative time, definitely.
And is that how you developed that classic contemporary aesthetic? Did it, was that born from that experience, or?
Yeah, probably. And I think the next project we did after that was, again, a period home. I love period properties. I think that's where we do a lot of contemporary homes as well. But I find a period property much more inspiring. So I think that definitely did dictate our kind of signature style. But I think it takes a while to get a signature style. I mean, definitely when I look back at the stuff I was doing right at the beginning, in that first office, for sure, I didn't have a aesthetic. I did one bathroom that I really loved, and they did let me run with it. But until then, I was doing whatever the client wanted me to do. And I think that's a really difficult time for a designer, because you need to, you need the work. A client is a client at the beginning, and you've got to pay your bills. So but I think that moment where you feel like you're actually getting your say and you're able to talk a client into the right design choice, that feels true to you is a really big pivotal moment, I think.
And was the time when you thought it was right to grow your, to scale up?
Yeah, I mean, that was, I think that honestly, so I've kind of jumped over the Aaron side, which is a very, very important part of the story. So I met Aaron, he was working as a product designer, actually, which is really ironic because I trained as an interior architect, he trained as a product designer, but now I do the product design and he runs interior architecture.
Oh, wow.
Oh, interesting.
Which is really interesting. And that, again, is an example of how there's no one way to do this.
Yeah.
You go with what is right, I think, for you. And that is where our passions and skill sets lay. So it just kind of naturally has unfolded that way. But so he was doing really well in his career. He'd been at a company for 9 years and was happy there. So it was a really difficult decision for us to for him to leave that stability. And we didn't have any financial backing. We were living off our own salaries, and it was a big jump for us to do that. But he'd been working behind the scenes and supporting me for couple of years, I think it was, and such a valuable asset to me from a design point of view, but also from the business. He's very, very good at business as well. Having never run a business either, he just is naturally very strong at that. And so we did take the plunge shortly after our wedding. I think what it was is we did a bit of a DIY wedding in Italy, in Tuscany, and we just had so much fun organising it and planning it, and none of those arguments that we kept hearing everyone having. And we thought, maybe we could do this, because actually we were just really enjoying it. And so we took the plunge, and then I got pregnant very, very quickly, much quicker than we expected. So we kind of had a deadline. And he handed in his notice, I think, a few days after we found out we were expecting. And that was it. It was like, right, you've got however long to, whatever it is, 8 months, 8 months at the time, to learn how to run a business. This is how you do a tax return. This is, all of these things, how you do a fee proposal. And then I was kind of out the door, and I just really took my first maternity leave fully. So he really just stepped up, and it was amazing what he did in that time, really amazing. And we were able to, at that point, hire our first junior, who was much more FF&E focused, which was needed because that's just not something Aaron's particularly passionate about. So I then kind of, dipped back in when I was ready, and then just slowly built the team up from there. But it was a very, very slow growth. But I think the main turning point really was that first employee, because I think having a business partner, yes, that's a risk personally, but you're not really paying a salary. That first, actually really
That's
justifying that
scary
first salary is
to do.
really, really hard. And I get asked this all the time, when's the right time? And you're never really ready unless you start a business and have an amazing project that lands, on your feet, and sorry, not lands on your feet, that doesn't make sense. But you just don't have the cash flow really to justify it. You have to take that risk, and if it's the right person, it pays off.
And at what point did you start looking at processes, systems? Was that a learning curve, or did you learn the hard way? And
a bit of both. A bit of both. I mean, I actually really, I've talked about this before, but because I didn't ever work for any big studio, so the 2 studios I worked for before, one of them, it was just me and the owner. And then before that, it was a startup, and it was a very, very small team. So I'd never worked for some of those big studios that I now kind of work alongside, who have all the processes. I didn't even know the hierarchy of who works and what role, and what the roles are even called. So as we grew, we didn't have a mentor, we didn't have anyone to ask. And I felt like the internet was a different place. Social media wasn't really prominent for me back then. So we just did it by instinct of what feels logical, what makes sense for our business as we grow. What do we feel like we need? What are we not able to bring? Because I always believe that, you should, that kind of advice that I've heard a few people say is that you should hire the skills that you don't have, or hire someone better than you at certain things. And that was kind of how we did it. But yeah, we definitely did learn the hard way. We definitely had some, people come and go that haven't been the right fit, and, not great situations in those areas. Sometimes everyone experiences that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But processes come, I think you learn, like our contract is constantly being tweaked, because, you learn, now we need to cover ourselves for that. And I think the same with, we now have really extensive sign-off documents. Obviously didn't have that. And then certain situations happened where the client didn't realize they were signing off X, Y, Z. So you learn along the way, sometimes painfully, but other times I think you just have to be logical about it, And again, like stepping out of that day to day. We do a really good process now, which I recommend everyone does. At the end of each project, once it's completely closed off, we do a lessons learnt meeting. So everyone involved, we have 3 different departments. So we've got interior architecture, FF&E, and procurement. And then there's finance as well. And we'll all sit down the table and we'll all go through and be completely honest. And it's not about blaming anyone. It's not about
It's about learning.
It's just about learning, and it's just about passing on that knowledge. And then anything that's relevant to the wider team will then share with the wider team in a meeting. And I think that was so valuable. And that's really helped us all grow.
What did you learn from that experience? Was that a particular thing that, was recurring, or that you wanted to fix?
I think there's just so many pitfalls in this industry. There's so much. I mean, you're making thousands of decisions across a project, and there's so much room for error constantly. So you're having to preempt mistakes the whole time. And it's almost like you have to get into a negative mindset almost, where you're thinking the worst all the time. You're critically assessing everything. You're looking at a piece of furniture design, something I'm really passionate about, and you're just thinking constantly of like the wear and tear, or, is that going to snag someone's silk dress, or, or just manufacturing. You have to just have that kind of mindset constantly. So, I can't even begin to name all the things that have gone wrong over the years, because there are so many of them. I mean, that's the reality of it.
That's true.
Nothing catastrophic, thank God. It's all manageable stuff, and it's all relative. Obviously, we're not, brain surgeons here, let's be honest. But, there's a lot riding on it. There's a lot of money riding on it. So you have to take it very, very seriously. And I think learning from those things that haven't gone well are going to inform so much of the business process and the design process.
Because when you have many projects to run at the same time, and you had to make sure that every single project is considerate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how do you do that? Because every project is bespoke for you.
Every project's different. And that's really important to us, that every project's different. So we intentionally don't repeat designs. Which, makes things definitely harder. It would be a whole lot easier if we just kind of churned out a wardrobe design repeatedly. I'm sure clients would be fine with that, but I wouldn't be. And I think our team also are in this because they love it and they want to create something. And we give a lot of design ownership to our designers as well. It's a very collaborative process. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to think through. And I mean, I'm not sure I've answered your question, because there is no answer to it really. It's just it's tough, but you just have to be really on it. And I think you have to
you had to think so many things before actually everything happens.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, processes are hugely important to us. And I think we're really strong on that in terms of just the stages of design. The amount of technical information that goes into our tender packs is so extensive, and it makes it, we get feedback from contractors that we're a really good studio to work with because the information is there and there's just nothing left to interpretation. It also allows us to give clients that confidence at the beginning that before any work is done, they know what has been costed and that it's accurate. And if you are tendering, then that's an actual accurate comparison between different parties, because they're costing against something which is down to the hinges and down to the, the stuff that you're not seeing has been specified.
Yeah. In working with the right clients, can really help you, build a business, grow the business, especially what you were saying, the client that, had, moved to Belgravia, multiple projects. What other strategies, have you used, to grow the business?
I'm not sure actively we've made any real strategies. I mean, social media has been huge for us. I
Yep.
really, really know that a huge amount of that is luck. I got in early. I think it's really difficult to kind of make headway now with social media. I've seen the change over the, I don't know, what is it, probably 12, 13 years I've been on it, and how hard it is to kind of keep the algorithm interested in you.
Right.
It used to be very easy. You pretty much didn't need to do anything and you would get followers. But actually, I think there's a bit more to it than that. I think we have been able to show who we are as a studio.
Yeah.
And that's, a little bit, obviously there's a lot of behind the scenes, which is interesting to new clients, of just how much work goes into it. And I think there's a comfort in knowing that actually that really is your work, because so much of portfolio work, you don't really know.
No.
You don't know how much of that was already there, how much is the designer's input. And then obviously now with AI, it's very, very hard to differentiate yourself. So I think to be able to use social media to really show
Your value.
your value, and actually, and who we are as people as well, and what our values are. I mean, Aaron and I really pride ourselves on, enjoying that client relationship. We have great long-standing relationships with clients, and that's really important to us. We're not just in this for the money.
Business, yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, none of us would be if it was to do with that. That's not what you're in this industry for. We love design. We love building homes that feel really personal to our clients, but also that are kind of going to, stand the test of time and be timeless and feel relevant in 10, 20 years. And I think, we've proven that with those long-standing relationships. We've had clients who've come back to us time and time again, and it's a really nice feeling. And that's what we do it for, really, is that kind of personal gratification.
And you have also beautiful projects abroad. So how did the first project started abroad?
I'm trying to remember what the first one abroad was. I think it was one in India. I can't remember, actually. That's an interesting switch. I should really know that.
That could be a good.
It happened. It happened all kind of at once. So I think there was more than one, and I think it really was social media. It was that ability to be able to reach people outside of your country, which I don't know. We're not natural networkers. We're not people who kind of have our personal kind of social world isn't our client's world, let's be honest. So it really allowed us to then get in kind of literally into the phones of people who have these amazing opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it happened just all around kind of 1 or 2 years. We just started getting inquiries. But we did also have clients who we would work with in the UK, and then they would have a second home, or they would buy a second home. So there was a bit of that as well. But the reason it's a blur is it feels like it all just suddenly took off internationally quite quickly for us. So there's one project that stands out.
And starting out abroad has brought some influence as well in how you run in the studio.
Yeah,
we had to structure a little bit different.
Yeah, I think it really made us tighten up our processes, because you're working a lot more remotely. Quite often we'll have a project manager, English-speaking project manager in that location, but you're not able to do the site visits weekly, whereas if it was down the road, you would. So that really elevated that side of things. But I think we also just started to really understand different cultures and how they live and the nuances that come with that. And we'd already tapped into that a bit, because I think our client base is quite international. Even our UK projects, quite often, it's quite an international client base, but definitely more so. And we had some really lovely experiences where we would get invited over to the house, or at least, the location of the house, and take the briefing, but in person. And we've often stayed with clients, new clients, and got to know them in a way that you just probably wouldn't if they were just coming to your office for an hour,
Mm-hmm.
And, we'd have dinners with their children, and it became much more personal. So we've had some really lovely relationships over the years where we've just spent much more quality time. We'd spend, 2-3 days with somebody. We've got a lovely client in LA, and we spent 3 days, and we spent all day, every day with them. We did some sourcing and they just took us to their favorite restaurants. And I feel like we know 100% how to design that house because we feel like we know them really well now. And I know that any house they have in the future will always do it. And that's quite rare. And I think you wouldn't have that if they were not overseas and we weren't kind of going over for a visit.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
It's exciting. I mean, we see more and more designers nowadays that are looking to expand internationally. I don't know if it's because of there are more opportunities out there, or whether the UK market is having a tough moment right now. But we see lots of people, lots of designers, interior designers and architects working in the Middle East. I know that you've been working quite a lot in that area and part of the world.
Yeah.
How's that going there?
Yeah, good. So we're doing a lot in the Middle East. We're doing a lot. We're doing 3 enormous villas in Saudi, absolutely enormous. One of them 65,000 square feet, which I can't still quite grasp what that actually really looks like. It's like a hotel. And that's just a completely different way to design. It's been so fun. It's very classical and different for us, but I love that challenge. I love doing something that's really out of my comfort zone.
New, yeah.
But being able to bring it back to what our kind of core principles are, there's always a way to bring it back to what that is so that it still feels like your work, but it's just been pushed in a direction that's really relevant to that client. And then we're doing a lot. We've been working in kind of the UAE for a long, long time, and the demand is just going up and up, as I'm sure you know. I mean, everyone's aware of how much it's expanding, particularly in Dubai.
So was that intentional then to in terms of or strategic and knowing obviously what the demand is, or it's potentially, you mentioned that sometimes, clients have second homes and, multiple properties and let's say that client obviously took us there and,
I think it's a bit of both, but I think it's strategic mostly because I think, you touched on it. It's very hard time in the UK to do business. Everything is kind of against it. And, it's just a little bit demoralizing at times when we're all working to the same degree, actually harder. And it just feels like you're kind of always up against something. So I think it's just a bit of a necessity to start just kind of branching out a little bit, just having less of your eggs in one basket, I think. I just think that's a sensible way to go. It's definitely helped us over the years having international work, for sure, as things have kind of been so up and down here. It's helped support that. And I love working in the UK. It's obviously a lot more convenient, and I like the hands-on site stuff that you get to do more of. But it's great to do something different and travel. So I think we did have a bit of a strategy with it, but also we met the right people at the right time, and it was an old client, and he just said, "Look, I've got some people I want you to meet," and there's so much business going on there.
Is it mainly like private clients or is it development work?
It's a mix, actually. I think that, there's so much development work, and that's quite nice. The pace out there is much faster, which is nice because I think things can get really slow here, particularly at the moment. It's just a lot of stopping and starting with projects. We find the big projects can be quite long to get over the line. So it's nice to just be able to just keep things moving. Developments particularly. I like the balance of development. We do development work here as well. I love the private client work for the personal aspects. You get better budgets usually, more creative reign, but the development work is also really fun because of the speed. It's a bit more reliable. You don't have the, complexities of dealing with the client. So it's just nice to have that balance. I feel like I couldn't do one without the other. I also think you learn so much from each that you can use on the other. So, we take so much of the kind of personal stuff that we learn about the way that people live in their homes and making something particularly just kind of open to all internationally. You can bring that into development work. It really, a lot of our project work you wouldn't necessarily know if it was a developer home or a private home because we try and make the developer feel personal. But equally you learn so much on timelines and budgets and that structure that you need on developments that you can use on private clients that they really appreciate.
So how you deal with the bespoke element of creating an interior for a developer, and when sometimes obviously you don't know who's going to live there?
Well, we sometimes do, think of like an imagined client, but it's a little bit of everything. I mean, obviously, we'd need to know who their demographic is. They usually come to us with a bit of a target demographic, and often the location will dictate that. So we did a lovely project in Kensington, and it was very much kind of focused on European buyers. So that gave us a nice, thread to use. But also, we do like to really design based on the heritage of the location. We want it to feel like it is where it is. So, if we're designing something in Belgravia, it needs to feel very British and it has
Authentic,
heritage.
yeah.
But then quite often the buyer is going to be international. So you need to just kind of cater for some of that. But there's a way to just bring in all those influences together. And that's what I really enjoy, is fusing all of that and creating something that feels really relevant to that building, to that location, and to that imagined buyer. That there's always a narrative that you can kind of come up with for that buyer.
And I guess also leaving some space for their personal things as well.
Yeah, definitely. You can't exactly. I mean, some people do literally want to turn up with their suitcases, even private clients. It's amazing how many people say, no, we don't have any art, we just want you to do all of it.
Right.
But others, we're working a lot with some of their own things, finding spaces for things, and then that will inspire the rest of the room. I mean, it's all different, but that's the fun of it.
And you spoke before about product design. How funny now that actually you are dealing with the product design.
Yeah.
And this is how Laura Hammett Living started.
Yeah,
Tell
exactly.
us a little bit about it.
Well, I've wanted to do it for so long. It's been a real fantasy of mine to do something, almost to go back to kind of my roots, I guess. But just not feeling like I had the bandwidth to do it. And I think we just got to a point where the team was so strong in the interiors business, and we had amazing heads of departments who were just really handling everything on a day-to-day basis. And then I guess the kids were a little older. So I just felt like, creatively I was ready. And I think I really enjoy the building of a business. I think I was starting to miss that. We'd got to a point with the interiors business that I had never in a million years imagined. It wasn't something I set out to right, I want to get to this level. It was just happening, and year on year it was just growing, and it was a real shock. But then when, I stood back and I thought, okay, this is quite, this is like such a surprise for me. But I actually miss that kind of grassroots of something, and the unknown of it almost. You get to a point and it sounds almost ungrateful, and I'm not, because I really, really am so grateful and so proud of what Aaron and I have built. But you don't get the same kind of buzz that you get those early days of something starting, and of that kind of real excitement of what it could become, and that it's kind of this limitless opportunity. So I think I was craving that a bit, but also there was just a practical side of it, of like we're designing products day in, day out, one off, and so often you miss that opportunity and that time to really hone it down and perfect it, and you're almost creating prototypes every time you do a bespoke piece, which I'd say majority of the time is great, and there's but there's so many times where I've thought, I wish I could do that again and make it better.
Were you designing a lot of bespoke?
So we've always done that. Always done. I mean, I kind of use it as like around 80% of the furniture and lighting we supply on projects is bespoke or custom. At least I'm not into kind of just picking stuff from catalogs. It doesn't really work for me. But also I just find I find so many limitations on what's available. I'm such a control freak that I don't want to have to compromise on that finish and that, but then, I mean, it started with accessories actually, before the furniture and lighting. And accessories was just because I think there's just actually a really limited pool on the market, particularly of products that are in stock for immediate dispatch, and really reliable. Like when you're a designer, particularly. So I'd say we're about half of our customer base are designers and half are retail customers, which is a really nice balance. Again, for the same reason of kind of why I like private work and developer work. It's just nice to kind of feel that balance, and you learn a lot from working with trade, and but also the insight that we have as designers, knowing what trade buyers want and need and the demands that they have on their day and how we can help kind of make that easier. I think we found it so difficult, that procurement side of a project, so difficult, because, the team, we have a whole procurement team now, which we didn't used to have. And that's because it's an absolute full-time job dealing with all of the things that are going wrong with supply chain constantly. Things not being delivered, things going out of stock, or suddenly, delays. And I just thought,
you have more control.
Yeah, there's just this. It's not working, And I just thought, right, fine, I'll do it myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, also because it's, you can do everything right at the beginning, and then obviously people see the last part of the puzzle, and if that is not great.
Exactly. And actually, that's where we found if a client relationship is going to start to fall apart, it's at the end. It's always at the end. And it's so disappointing if you've worked so hard, you've really built this relationship, and then you've just been let down by your suppliers at the end because of, we've had months and months of delays. It's just like, there's no excuse for it. And so I just thought, right, I'm going to really get to the bottom of this, and actually we're going to find manufacturers that are the real deal and who actually do what they say they're going to do, and the quality is there, and we're going to be really, really on top of it in terms of stocking, dispatching quickly. So all of our smaller pieces, all of our decor pieces, so frames, florals, cushions, all of that is all held in stock, and it's all quickly dispatched. Sometimes it goes out the door in on the same day. It's mad. When I look at the app, I'm like, whoa, it's gone. And that's really satisfying, and just and our designer customers come back time and time again. Some people have done so many orders because they just know that they can rely on us, and that's really nice. So at the end of a project, just making everyone's life easier. But the furniture and lighting is made to order. And that's because they're all handmade, and, it's an incredibly complex process. But those lead times we give on our website, they are our kind of worst case scenario, and we've often improved on them. And that's what we really try and do. But it's difficult, shipping is very problematic and logistics. But I mean, my absolute core value is that we are going to look after our customers. Because I've been on the end of it, and I've been let down so many times, and it's your name that's it's damaging as a designer. The client doesn't care. You can say all day long, it wasn't us, they let us down. They don't care. At the end of the day, they can't move in.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's on you as the designer.
I mean, creating that infrastructure is not easy, because I think a lot of people that maybe want to, let's say, trying to, get different revenue stream for their studio. They sometimes they start with selling some or promoting some collections, whether they are curating some collection, they are making some collections, and but they don't understand that it's not just that, and actually, running that part of that side of the business, actually really promoting another business that requires attention, investment, promotion, and customer service. If you really want to make sure that your reputation is obviously stays high.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And if I'd known just how much work was involved, would I do it? I think I would. I think I still would. Because like I said, I really like that challenge. I like to do a really good job. I get a real kick out of feeling like we're doing something well. And and I think you can that's really tangible when you're doing something that's kind of customer service related. Like, you get the immediate feedback, and we get so much great feedback from happy customers who feel like they've been looked after. The product's really good. I mean, I stand by the product 100%. I wouldn't sell a single thing if I didn't really believe that it was A, well designed, and B, really, really well made.
Because it has your name.
It totally, I mean, literally has my name on it. Like actual plaque that has my name on it. So I have to be really confident that someone's not going to, in a few years' time, be like, oh, hang on, this is now wearing badly. And, these are proper pieces of furniture and lighting and products that you can keep and pass down. And again, that's something that I think is missing. I'm not answering your question, sorry. But I just I think that's missing. I think we churn out furniture in our industry in order to kind of meet deadlines and fulfill budgets. I don't think the quality is always there, and I get really frustrated when I turn up to site and we're in these like multi-million-pound homes, and there's pieces of furniture that have just been knocked together, and it's not up to standard. So I really want to change that aspect as well and provide our clients and then other people's clients and private people as well the good stuff, the proper fine furniture. But yeah, I mean, and going back to your question about the kind of complexities of it, there's an enormous amount that goes on behind the scenes. It is so much work. I've definitely over the last few years spent probably a bit more time on that business than the other business. But that's because the other business is ticking along so nicely.
Structured, yeah.
But they complement each other, and I often, a lot of our core collections have come off the back of projects. So I've been designing pieces for those projects, and then they've kind of fallen into the collection when they're right. So that has been, it doesn't take time away from the other. They're complementing each other, and it's making me really push the interiors business forward because I'm really wanting to kind of support the other one as well. So it's good.
And it's not just furniture, but it's also paint.
Yes,
wallpaper.
God, I always forget to mention that. I don't know why. No, I mean, paint and wallpaper is such a huge part of it. And actually, that was one of the most exciting categories, and it felt really proper. And I don't know why, because I think, I'd been dealing with accessories for a while. We'd unlocked that kind of supply chain and like really developed that. But paint and wallpaper, that to like really go and like find people to make paint and paint charts and paint pots and all of that was so out of my comfort zone and so much fun. And again, that came from just a bit of a frustration, I think, with like, I just wanted something that was really confident, like that's absolutely tried and tested, foolproof, because we work in neutrals, which is an absolute nightmare. I mean, I often say it all the time in the studio. Why do we do this to ourselves? Well, because the nuances of color in neutrals is that people just really underestimate it. There's no such thing as beige or as cream or as, I mean, ivory. There are a million color. And actually, when you've been involved in the manufacture process of paint, you physically see how many colors go into a neutral color. It's unbelievable. And even we've got a white which is called perfect white because it literally is the perfect white. And that took ages to develop. But there's color in that, which you just wouldn't know when you're going to choose a white paint. And for me, it's so much about what colors do to each other. So you're not ever choosing one thing in isolation in design. So if you're choosing a neutral wall color, you've got to think about the stone and the fabric and the wallpaper and all of the different elements. And if you throw something in that is a little bit off, it can make a neutral color look green or pink, and it absolutely does my head in when I go into interiors where you know that they either haven't got that like level of experience or they just haven't considered it enough. They haven't really looked at everything together. They've just picked things. So the idea for me was partly to make life easier for my team, but also for maybe people who aren't in the trade, but we sell a lot to the trade. So obviously it is working for them too, of just that go-to of like, you've got the 5 different shades within. So we've got kind of very nuanced different shades of neutrals, and then we've got our kind of go-to slightly stronger colors or a little bit of color for kids' rooms and things like that. So I've touched on like all the staples, essentially, our go-tos, and then paired, we've got a guide of what goes with what, and you've got wallpapers that
make it very easy.
Just trying to make it really easy because there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of decisions to make, whatever we can do to just kind of eliminate that. And the same with the furniture as well. You've got options, you've got fabric options, and there's a lot of kind of guidance on what goes with what, but generally everything goes with everything, and that was intentional as well. So you can just kind of go, and it's a bit of a one-stop shop to we've had a couple of designers just literally finish a project. I mean, just unbelievable orders, which I never expected that to happen, but because it works and we get it, which is really nice.
It's a nice proud moment.
Yeah, it does. I do feel proud. It's a much more tangible sense of pride with this business than the other one, I think, because I guess it's quicker return on your kind of, the feedback comes in quickly. And
so you had to,
and especially if other designers are using it, right? Because obviously they know other options as well. But
what's not, you get, exactly. And if people are coming back to us, we know that we're doing it right, because there are other people out there doing it. I think not enough doing it well, if I'm totally honest. But I think my goal with it really is to be a real one-stop shop. We've got so many different categories we want to add. Because it's just limitless of what you can do once you get started. And what I love is that you can, like I said with interiors, you're almost doing everything once. I love the fact that you can do something and make it perfect and then move on, and then get that perfect and move on. And that other thing still exists and it just carries on being produced. So like dining chairs that I just I love them, and they'll just always be there. We can always go back and specify them or sell them. And that feels really
And you
rewarding.
had to build a new team for
Yes, but it's actually a really small team. Yeah, and we've got a couple of people who sit kind of across both businesses because that really makes sense. And then we've got a couple of new people, but it's really a very small team. There's about 5 of us in total. And like I said, some of those people are kind of working part-time.
That's impressive.
Both businesses. Really but so, I mean, everyone's, got a lot on their plate, and we've got a really, really strong team. But it's really exciting being involved in something from the beginning. And I think people are finding out quite rewarding, like people who were there before we even launched the website. To where it is today.
Because it's not only just, selling a product, but it's all the website to actually to build that for e-commerce and everything.
And all of the marketing and the kind of Google ads and all of that stuff. It's a whole beast. I mean, I've learned a lot. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on that I don't fully grasp, and the logistics and the fulfillment, the pick and pack and all of that stuff. There's a lot involved.
I'm guessing, obviously, the Laura Hammett brand has helped really to.
It definitely has. There's no question. And, I think we haven't just kind of popped out of nowhere. And I think we've had a lot of brand loyalty, which I'm really appreciative of. I think what is another really positive is that we're able to showcase products in real homes. It's not a set. It's not a showroom. It's a real living home. So I think that helps to add the kind of lifestyle aspect to the brand. But also I think customer confidence. I mean, I'm always blown away at what people are prepared to spend online, having never touched it. I mean, you can order samples, but you still are relatively blind. And I think a lot of that has come down from just people trusting that we're not kind of just some
the quality
exactly
behind it,
that we've learned. It's 17, 18 years worth of experience in the industry to get us to this point. So I think that holds value, which is nice.
Yeah. And if you can go back at the beginning when you opened Laura Hammett Living, what would you do differently now? Now that you know the process and what is behind?
Okay, I wouldn't launch an e-commerce website on a Monday morning. If you want to be sane on a Sunday night, definitely wouldn't do that. Because that was hairy that night and morning. We did it, but it was hairy behind the scenes. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't believe in any of that. I just honestly, everything that didn't go perfectly was an amazing lesson learned. I like a challenge. I kind of like a little bit of chaos. I mean, even on that same launch day, I mean, no one knows this, but the fulfillment center that we use, the pick and pack dispatch company, they had a complete blackout an hour before we launched, and orders were like rushing in the second we launched, and we were like, okay, stay calm. But it's like, that it's kind of part of the excitement, and that's it adds to it's character building. I mean, I always believe you don't learn anything when things are going well. You learn from the challenging times, personally, and then also practically, and it gives you a bit of grit and gives you confidence with, now it feels like when we do launches, we're like, oh, I've got it, it's fine, no big deal, because we've dealt with, stressy things and
the experience.
I think everyone wants to avoid those moments, whether it's like dealing with a client problem, dealing with obviously.
You can't avoid them.
I think, being comfortable with failure, I think it's important.
Totally. And you really do learn from it. And it's important for us to also teach our team that it doesn't always go well. I've definitely, when we have these lessons learned sessions, we had one recently where there was very little to comment on because the client was super happy. But I actually threw the question back to the team of, okay, let's swap that client out for, I won't name who, but someone who was trickier from the past. Let's go through this project again, and actually it would have been a different story. So to have too many super happy, easy clients, you don't learn anything. You need those people who pick up on every single thing or create problems where there aren't really problems. That's where you will learn. So when we have a team member who's really struggling because they've had a really stressful time, it's like, I promise you, when you deal with somebody like this again, you'll know exactly what to do and you'll feel so confident, and it's really valuable. It's hard, but it's really valuable.
It's a learning curve, so you learn from your experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because otherwise you don't know what you are doing right as well if the client is always happy.
Yeah, exactly.
So, in terms of, obviously we understood that you're quite comfortable in kind of dealing with different challenges, right? And what kind of what else can you, let's say, advise or suggest for other interior designers to implement with their studios? Whether they are just starting out or maybe they are just a few years down their journey.
I think it would be really specific to their situation, but my main lessons I've learned over the years, I think, are having more confidence in my instincts, and I feel like quite strong in that area now, but I still have to remind myself that actually, okay, I haven't done this before, but I do still know the general principle of how to kind of deal with a challenge. And I think it can really hold you back. I think at the beginning of my business, I was definitely second guessing everything. I was, showing clients too many options and just not having enough conviction that, actually they've come to me, they want a specialist, they want someone to tell them, in the same way that, I'm not massively into fashion, for example. I like it, but I don't really, it's not, I love the idea of like having a stylist, someone to be like, right, this is what you should wear. I don't want to have to think about that because I'm busy thinking about this. And that's how our clients are. Our clients are so busy. Most of our clients are entrepreneurial. They're business owners. They've made their own money and they work incredibly hard. They're very busy people. They don't want to be kind of, they want you to come
to tell them what
and
to
to say confidently, like, this is the right choice.
Yeah.
This is what you should do. I'm handling it. Bring them in, obviously, as and when they're needed and they want to be involved. But so I think confidence in that area, and I think you can do that from day one. I think it really will help. And I just think, like, just really listen. I think I always say it's a female superpower, that real gut instinct. No offense to you, I'm sure you have it as well. But I think women are particularly good at knowing what that feeling is of what doesn't feel right, what does feel right, and going with it. And just sometimes it's not the most commercial decision. Sometimes it's a moral decision. It's a principles decision. But being able to say no to a client that you just feel like that's not the right fit, because find that fee may help me in the short term, but in the long term it's not worth it. So I think that confidence and following your instincts are always my advice to people.
And what about people that actually want to start opening a shop or start their own product design? What advice can you give to those designers?
Just prepare yourself for a lot of late nights. It's hard graft. Like, you really have to put the hours in. It's a completely different process. And obviously there's, startup costs, all of that. Like, you can't wing it. So I think I winged the beginning of my career. I think that's fair to say. And I think you probably can with project work to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
With this kind of thing, you absolutely need a proper business plan. You really need to know what you're doing, and you need to plan it, and you need to have contingency plans. You need to, because there's a lot more risk, particularly if you're holding stock and you're investing in.
Yeah. And you mentioned you have lots of other things that you want to do for Laura Hammett Living. Is any anticipation or is it a secret?
I mean, it's like anything and everything you can possibly think of at home, we will eventually start doing. So it's just, there's so many things where I'm constantly getting sent samples of things that are kind of almost there, but not quite there. So I'm such a perfectionist. So unless something is absolutely right, it's not going to be ready. So many things. I mean, bedding, carpets. I want to do a kids collection. I'm really excited to do that because I really struggle with finding stuff that's kind of ready-made. We have to do custom all the time, bespoke stuff all the time for kids, just to get that really like elegant, timeless kids look, which I love. I love designing kids' rooms, and there's just not enough brands out there doing it. So, I mean, so many things. Watch this space.
So, I would say that you're now considered, one of the top interior designers in the UK. Do you think what was harder to get to the top or to stay at the top now?
Oh, that's a good question. And I find it really odd when you say that, because it's not how we see ourselves. It's just it's a weird thing when you just get your head down and do your work. But thank you for saying that. I don't know, because we're just doing what we're doing. It's not a conscious thing. I'm not, out there like fighting for the top spot. You just want to do a really good job, and if people appreciate that, then that's amazing. I don't know that I can answer that question, because I don't know that that's necessarily true.
I mean, it's good because obviously it feels that everything that you do is quite natural, and from obviously the way that you present yourself on social media. And it really shows that, people are inspired by what you do and what you say. And and I think that, if everything comes natural to you, that's great. So there's no really challenge there. Really good.
Thank you. But also, I mean, I think we're both very kind of self-critical as well. So I think, I'm always seeing what we could be doing better. And I think that's probably a good thing in the long run. But it would be nice to be able to step back and think, oh, okay, this is cool, more often than we do. We're normally like, right, let's do the next thing. Let's make it better.
Right, Laura, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for sharing your passion. And good luck for the new items, so Laura.
Thank you so much for having
me. Thank you so much.
We'll be looking at the website constantly.
Yes, to see what is new.
Thank you very much again.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. And if you enjoyed our conversation, feel free to share it with your friends. And if you wish to dive deeper into the business of interior design, we invite you to join our membership community at businessandinteriors.com. Until next time.